Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're starting. Kulbhushan Yadav at the ICJ. There's been quite a bit of speculation regarding this. We've had every single legal wizard on TV giving his view, and sadly, a lot of it is wrong. A lot of it is not based on the facts. Thankfully, we have a center, RSI, which does study international and has looked at this in a lot of detail. There's an article I wrote before this recent judgment in this order, the stay that India got. Anybody who's interested in this area should go have a read of that as well. It helps, really simplify the issue. It's written for non-lawyers, and that really gives you a background to this issue. I'll try to briefly go over some of these issues. A quick overview. We look at the facts of the case. We look at the ICJ and how you bring the case about at the ICJ, because इसपे काफी confusion था. लोगों ने कहा था कि नवाज शरीफ ने इजाजत दे दी थी केस लाने की over these issues. We look at India's reasons for approaching the ICJ. Why did it go to ICJ when there are other cases where it could have gone but it hadn't? Complications in the case and potential outcome. This is not really a slide. This is what we'll discuss if we have time. So Kulbhushan Sudhir Yadav, his alias is Hussain Mubarak Patel. This has been recognized. He has a passport with this. Date of arrest 3rd March 2016. Place of arrest Mashghel, Balochistan, which is highlighted on the map. He was residing in Chabahar in Iran. Chabahar is, what is Chabahar in Iran? It's a port, and you said it rightly the first time. It's an Indian port. So it's. They are India is putting in a lot of development here. It's very close to. This is where Chabahar is. So it's very close to Gwalior. It's being built with Indian assistance. You have a lot of Indian nationals there. Kulbhushan was alleged to be doing business in this. We've always alleged that Chabahar is being used as an intelligence, base to gather intelligence from Pakistan and destabilize our Balochistan region, especially in Karachi as well. Indian passport in the name of Hussain Mubarak Patel was recovered from Yadav at the time of arrest. India confirms Yadav is an Indian citizen and a former Navy officer. They say former, we say he's still an officer. He was convicted by a field general court-martial to death for offences against the Official Secrets Act. So he was not convicted for terrorism. He was convicted for espionage. We need to be clear on this as well. Consular access from India was denied I think 17 times over here. Their request came in and we denied it. And that's the contentious issue. That's what the entire case is on this. On 8th May 2017, India approached the International Court of Justice to decide on the issue of Pakistan's continued denial of consular access to Yadav. On 18th May, ICJ granted a stay of execution to India. This was a preliminary measure against Pakistan, restraining it from executing Yadav. Now, what we see in this entire thing is, how did India even take us to this? What were its reasons behind doing this? And if you study the issue, you look at the geopolitics behind this, you look at the bilateral relations and what India has to lose here, it becomes very clear why this case was taken and why India opted for this path. Before we get to that, let's look at the ICJ for a second. Just to clear up this confusion, about a month or two before this case was brought to the ICJ, Pakistan changed its declaration accepting the ICJ's jurisdiction. We accepted the ICJ's jurisdiction in the 1960s. Or a copy-paste from the Rome Statute, which is the statute that creates the ICJ. Uska humne copy-paste kiya tha. So it's a very simple thing. Basically, any country could take us to the ICJ for any matter. India has a much stronger, they have many exceptions. They say no Commonwealth country can take them to the ICJ. That means Pakistan. So we could never take Kashmir. So when people argue, hum ICJ kyun nahi leke ja sakte Kashmir, this is why we can't take them. Because we are a Commonwealth country and India has put an exception on that. There are other exceptions. Ke national security issues pe hum nahi karenge. Hamari territorial integrity pe we case hum nahi manenge. So India has these. The UK has these. Lots of other countries have these ironclad ones. We were, for some reason, didn't look into this, didn't think it was a threat. How did it become a threat? Why did it come onto our radar? There was, who's heard of the Republic of the Marshall Islands? So they sued us for, they took us to the ICJ for having nuclear weapons. They took all nuclear weapon countries to the ICJ. Out of the 9 countries, Israel, North Korea, all of these, only 3 have accepted the ICJ's jurisdiction voluntarily. Pakistan, India, and the UK. तो basically 9 मुल्कों के खिलाफ तो केस नहीं हुआ, only these 3 countries were subject to it. Thankfully, this office fought the case, and we had the case dismissed pretty early, right, in the preliminary measures, at the lowest level. So there was no case to fight essentially against them. So we won that. Next, what happened was that we found out that any country would take us. So recommendation from this office and from other places went to the Prime Minister's office that we need to strengthen our declaration to the ICJ so that frivolous cases are not brought against us. And this summary had been lying with the Prime Minister for over a year. But we know how efficient government can be at times, right? So for a year it was lying there and nothing happened. Eventually they did sign onto it.
So you said that any country will take this. Is it that since it's given in a convention and the countries that have ratified the convention, only those countries are obligated to fulfill jurisdiction?
That's the second round. But any country that has accepted the UN Charter, जब आप UN Charter accept करते हैं, then you automatically accept the Rome Statute. If you ever find a physical copy of the UN Charter, उसके साथ appended है the Rome Statute, which is the ICJ statute. So you're right. If you're not a member of the ICJ, you can't really take it then. But if you're talking about the Vienna Convention of Consular Relations, so yes, only those countries have signed up, and that's the second route to go to the ICJ. So the first route we just discussed. You give a declaration accepting the court's jurisdiction, and another country who has also accepted the court's jurisdiction takes you to court. That's one way. The second is compulsory jurisdiction under a treaty specifically granting the ICJ, saying that if there is a problem in our treaty, we will have it solved by going to the ICJ. So इसको कहते हैं dispute resolution mechanism. So the dispute resolution mechanism in the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, which is the subject of the Kulbhushan Yadav case, was found in an optional protocol. And I don't know why Pakistan generally does not sign any optional protocols, but for some reason we signed this optional protocol. And इस optional protocol में लिखा है कि if there is a dispute arising as to the interpretation, memorize these words, interpretation or application of the VCCR, the ICJ will have jurisdiction. So India did not take us through the first mechanism. It took us to the second mechanism. And that's why we had to go to the ICJ. If we did not go, ex parte proceedings bhi hoti, which means that a party does not show up, so case happens on one party's complaint. So we would not be representing ourselves. This is why we had to make a stand and we had to show ourselves there. The third ground is compromissory jurisdiction under a special agreement to refer matter to the ICJ. Two countries, they don't accept the court's jurisdiction, but they say, "Yaar, ye hamara masla hai. Let's get a third party to resolve it." Right? So they make a special agreement between each other and approach the ICJ कि ये हमारा मसला please आप solve करें. Qatar, Kuwait के दरमियान एक मसला हुआ था. They went. There are many examples of this sort. And finally, there is that a UN organ or entity can ask for an advisory opinion. Judgments are binding, but advisory opinions are not binding, and they can approach. So WHO ने nuclear weapons case में advisory opinion on nuclear weapons seek किया. So these are the 4 grounds on which you can seek. 3 really, the first 3 you seek jurisdiction, and the 4th you seek an opinion of the ICJ. Let's quickly look at some of the stages of proceedings. So, first, if you want to institute proceedings, you look at you send an application for instituting proceedings. इससे notices भेजे जाते हैं to the countries involved, country or countries involved, and then you start. If not in all cases, but if there is a right which could be destroyed, which is the subject matter of this thing, and it could be destroyed within the duration of this trial or this hearing, you will ask for a stay. ये normal courts में भी ये होता है, हर जगह वो होता है. So you can ask for a stay, or you can ask for the country to stop doing what it's doing, or something along those lines. That is sought for in preliminary measures. Now, preliminary measures के लिए भी a court has to say, do I have jurisdiction in this matter? Am I entitled? Am I lawfully allowed to hear this case? And only when it determines that it is allowed can it hear a case, right? So if there's the banking court, I'm not going to bring a criminal case to the banking court. The court does not have jurisdiction. Similarly, but the thing is that jurisdiction is a very complex issue to determine. So there's an entire phase for it. But preliminary measures के लिए भी आपने कुछ level of jurisdiction establish करनी है. That standard is very low. It's called prima facie jurisdiction. Where on the facts of it, on the face of it, it seems that the court has jurisdiction. And that's exactly what happened in the case, the Kulbhushan case. India was able to establish that the court does, under the optional protocol, have prima facie jurisdiction. अभी तक हमने डिटेल में jurisdiction की arguments जो हमारे पास हैं, वो हमने discuss ही नहीं. Right? That's going to happen at the next phase. So here, at a low standard, India established jurisdiction. Oral hearings meet and a decision came in, which was a stay was granted. This was not unexpected. The stay was going to be granted regardless, because in every situation before this, the court has granted a stay. So there were three cases, Breer, Legrand, and Avina. In all three cases, they were against the US, and the US ke khilaf stay grant was. So nothing to be too surprised about. The next phase is jurisdiction, challenging whether the court can even hear this case. So in this again, what you do is you submit written pleadings. India has to submit it in September. We have to then counter it in, send a counter memorial in December. And then a decision is made on whether the court can hear it. Uske baad, then you get to the actual case, the merits of the case, and that's the merits phase. These two phases can be combined. That depends on the strategy that the two parties mutually agree upon. That we can discuss, because sometimes there are jurisdictional arguments that you can't make without going into the merits of the case. For example, if we said the court cannot hear this because हमारी 2008 में एक मुआहदा है जिसमें हमने कहा कि हमारी discretion है, तो वो case तो बनता ही नहीं है. But this, though the validity of the 2008 case is a merits argument, but whether the court can hear it is a jurisdiction argument. So that's why people sometimes countries combine these, because you can't have a complete discussion on that. Do we have any questions on this? Or on the ICJ's ability to take pick up a case, issues of jurisdiction? All right. Okay, so what are some of India's reasons for going to the ICJ? In fact, let's not put this up. Why don't you guys give me, why do you think India went to the ICJ with? Yeah, so consular access, that's the straightforward thing. Hamari right violate hui hai, this and that. To stop the execution of a national, but there are lots of nationals waiting.
So there was pressure from Indian community?
Absolutely, there was immense pressure domestically. There was a media frenzy, and you know how crazy Indian media can get. Okay? Our media is just learning lessons now on that. But so the Indian media really created this frenzy, and India essentially painted itself into a corner. So what happened was that they took a stand. They said, "Nee, our citizen, we're not going to let him hang in Pakistan. How dare they?" But if you make this stand and then there are options left to you and you don't take those options, you seem like a hypocrite. So the only option available to India after all of this, after he'd been given the death penalty, was to take this to the ICJ. They didn't have a choice in that, so they painted themselves into a corner. Now there are other reasons for it as well, and you'll see. Sorry. One, they were caught red-handed, right? If you're a good spy agency, you don't get caught. But they got caught, and they got caught in the worst possible way, right? The guy had a passport with an alias. How do you deny this type of stuff? Like, it's very difficult, right? So they were caught red-handed. And what's been happening? Right now, till this, they've been accusing Pakistan of terrorism and destabilizing India. And they've forced us through international pressure also, and our own need as well, to cooperate with them on counter-terrorism issues, Mumbai, Pathankot, etc., etc., etc. So we've taken evidence from them. We've sent commissions to India to record Ajmal Kasab or in लोगों की evidence from in all these trials. So when this was happening, now the tables have turned. The situation has changed. Now we've captured one of theirs, and now they have to cooperate with us. But how do you stall that process? Because if you've been caught red-handed, who are we going to ask to? हमने evidence collect करने इसमें कहा कि your raw chief has been implicated, और ये आपका joint secretary है in this department. The state is implicated in destabilizing another foe. Mumbai, Pathankot में तो terrorist organizations आप कह सकते हैं. यहाँ पे तो they're in a really bad situation. So what happens there is that they need some way to stall this, to say that this is that we won't cooperate. But since we've been cooperating with them and we've been playing on their terms for this long, it's very difficult for them to say, "Oh, हम आप करें, हम नहीं करें." You know, they painted themselves into a corner. The Modi government could not be seen to be flexible on Pakistan. That was clear cut. He came in with a robust foreign policy against Pakistan, and they tried to implement that. And they aim to use Kulbhushan Yadav, they aim to use this case also to delegitimize our domestic processes. The trial that took place, they're saying this is a farce, this is a mockery of justice, this and that. It's the same system we use to try our terrorists, it's a military court system. हमारे भी जो ये military courts की हम बात करते हैं, technically a field general court martial under the Pakistan Army Act, which is the exact same mechanism which we used to try him. Okay, so they're using that to delegitimize Pakistan further in the eyes of the international community. Do we have any questions?
I wanted to ask that if it, what's the legal weight of a confession video, like in case where?
It's an excellent question. So confession, if it means to be entered into the evidence of a court for a trial, it has to be made before a magistrate or a judicial officer. A confession before a police officer has no weight. A confessional video really has no weight. Because, why not before a police officer? Because you can torture the guy into saying whatever you want before. Or the police officer could just lie. Ye mistake tha, he's convicted. Confessional video ki bhi ye issue. That's why it has to be before an independent magistrate who has the authority to protect this individual. For example, what happens in Pakistan is, and there's case law upon case law of this, is that police remand when they arrest someone. So there are two types of remand, judicial remand and physical or police remand. Police remand where the person is kept for up to 15, 14 days with the police for interrogation purposes. So they'll keep him in the thana. After that, he can be transferred to judicial remand for the trial. But if he, for example, makes a confession, they want to produce him before a magistrate, wahan jaako kehte hai, "Koi I don't confess." Now, if they take him back, he could be beaten or he could be told. So what the court says is that if a person refuses to confess before the magistrate, he cannot be given back into police custody. So he will have to be given to judicial remand. Judicial remand is basically you put him in jail, not in the police thana. So the police don't have access to him. These are all mechanisms in systems where this takes place. So the legal value of that, it's more perception value, but it's not legally sleepy value. We tried to play his tape in the oral hearing. They denied it to us, the ICJ. The courts, the judges saw it in chambers.
So this concept of enemy alien in our constitution, have we been able to establish that it is the enemy alien?
That's an excellent question again. You're a smart batch. So enemy alien concept, let me explain that very quickly. Enemy alien is a citizen in your country of a country that is at war with you. So an Indian citizen in Pakistan, if India and Pakistan went to war, that Indian citizen would be termed an enemy alien. Under the constitution, the only time he's mentioned is under Article 10 when it refers to preventive detention or arbitrary arrest and detention. उसमें बड़े सेफ कार्ड्स हैं कि आप एक बंदे को 2 साल के पीरियड में 8 महीने से ज़्यादा या 1 साल से ज़्यादा डिटेन नहीं कर सकते. And they have a Supreme Court review board, this and that. But all of these protections do not apply to only one category of person, and that is an enemy alien. So an enemy alien can be detained indefinitely, technically. But it has to be, he's only an enemy alien for the duration of a war. So you would have to release him after that. इस situation में, have we declared war with India? Not really. How would we bring that concept in? Interestingly, protection of Pakistan, I wasn't able to go to the legislation because Sufi Saab insisted that you have barbecue first. But Protection of Pakistan Act, we tried to modify the definition of enemy alien. We said any person who takes up arms against the state and whose identity is unascertainable. Basically, he's a non-Pakistani, Shanti Karni. This individual will be termed an enemy alien. We can detain him for as long as we want. Okay? This situation में, if we still had the PPA, Protection of Pakistan Act in place, it's possible that we could have used it on him. But we don't have it anymore. It had a 2-year life, sunset clause was imposed in it. So after 2 years, it automatically died out. It was a very dangerous law as well. So it's not a bad thing that it went through. Any other questions?
On our ability to win this case, the case is very strong in favor of Pakistan. We can impose Article 1373, and there are many more. So
let's get into that. Okay, so some of the complications in the case. Pakistan-India Agreement on Consular Relations 2008. Have we gone through this? Has anyone seen this?
Yes.
So So ये आपका हमारा foreign office produces a Pakistan treaty series. Okay, and this has all the treaties that we have signed with countries, bilateral, multilateral, in it since independence. The latest version, if you guys get a chance to talk to anyone in the research wing, 2009 के बाद issue नहीं हुई, please get another copy out, version out, so that our researchers help as well. But we have it here. You guys will obviously have access to it at the Foreign Office. उसमें we were going through this and we found randomly this agreement. All right, I mean, it wasn't a big issue, so we started highlighting it as well before this Kulbhushan issue. And then when Kulbhushan came in, we just clicked to us, we have a treaty which protects us in this situation. Now, this is the text of the treaty. It's very short. The government of Pakistan and India desires to further objective humane treatment of nationals of either country detained or imprisoned in each other. Each government shall maintain a comprehensive list of the nationals of each other country, immediate notification of any arrest or detention or imprisonment. Each government undertakes to expeditiously inform the other of the sentences awarded to convicted nationals in the other. And now, importantly, this is very important. In case of arrest, detention, or sentence made on political or security grounds, each side may examine the case on its merits. So they're talking about this is on consular access. Clearly, India with open eyes, Pakistan with open eyes, entered into an agreement that they knew they were going to be legally bound with. Okay? The people who signed it were empowered by the state to do so. They said कि हम consular access हर situation में देंगे except जब political या security related issue होगा उसमें हम it's up to us if we want, it's our discretion.
ये यादव के जब हुआ था just an example कि law किस तरह international law का फायदा if you are trained to think from international perspective, हमने ये agreement निकाला, India तो try to downplay this agreement कि नहीं ये this agreement Vienna Convention overrides it, ये agreement हमने इस agreement के हमारे researcher ने state practice निकाली, कि there was किसने निकाली थी? अभी नहीं निकाली थी?
Stop trying to give other people my credit.
So उसमें जो joint statements थी foreign ministers की, Hina Rabani Kar and whoever was the foreign तो जब उनके क्या कहते हैं दो बार उनकी statements थी foreign ministers communique में कि reaffirming this agreement after 2008. फिर उसके नीचे हमने prisoners exchange list की है.
So there's a joint judicial committee of judges of India and Pakistan that each they visit prisons or alternate year basis पे of each other to look at the nationals of their country.
और उसका जो legal paperwork है उसमें ये agreement is shown as the reason clause for it.
And that means every year they reaffirm this agreement and say that we should abide by it. So India now trying to deny that becomes very difficult for it. Yes.
सर बीसीसी के होते हुए इस एग्रीमेंट के करने की जरूरत क्या थी? क्या ये कोई एडिशनल मैकेनिज्म प्रोवाइड करता है?
This is the exact basis on which this case will be argued, and I've got it. We just move. That's the last point in that.
So actually इसमें भी जो मैंने किया था कि अब हमारे बीसीसीआर पे ये है प्रेसिडेंट कौन सा लगेगा?
Wait, you guys need to just wait one minute. This is the entire dispute. ये जो आपने बात की ना आपने, this is the case. ठीक है कि कौन सी 2008 agreement होगी या BCCR होगा? Which one will take precedence? And there's a way how we deal with it. It's called to interpret treaties. You have another international treaty called the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, VCLT. ठीक है? उसकी basis पे I'll just go into that in a bit. Now, when can you take a case to the ICJ for the VCCR? Optional protocol में language है. You'll approach the ICJ when there is a dispute arising out of the interpretation or application. Okay. Now, if we have the 2008 agreement, which India has signed, which Pakistan has signed, what dispute arises? You have said to us, India, that it is our discretion in a case of security to deny consular access. So there is no dispute as to interpretation and application. This is a jurisdictional argument. We can get the case kicked out by saying there is no dispute.
ये हमारा पॉइंट होगा भी jurisdiction phase पे पाकिस्तान is going to argue कि dispute है ही नहीं तो hence there is no jurisdiction of the ICJ.
If the legal team listens to us. But this is essentially, one way of looking at it. There is no dispute. Whatever dispute we had interpretation, well, we put it down on paper, and now we've agreed to this. So, where are you coming up with this argument, right?
Sir.
Hanji.
Sir, I think dispute is on the interpretation of nationals. They say that Kulbhushan is their national, so Pakistan should have given the consular access. While Pakistan argues that if Vienna Convention says that all nationals are to be given access, but they are not meant to include the terrorists or those like such guys. So the dispute is on the essence, on the essence of the word national.
Our argument, primary argument, is based on the 2008 agreement, which is a bilateral agreement. So nationals, Indian national, India has accepted him as a national, right? We also accept him as a national. So there's no interpretation issue there. We are saying that he falls into the 2008 exception, and that exception applies to security or political issues. So he comes within the security issue.
Sir, that's true, but ICJ did not consider even this argument.
At this stage, it didn't.
Yes, sir.
Because इसकी validity अभी determine करना बाकी है, which is the last point here, VCLT. But this is the argument that is taking place not on whether he's an Indian national or some other national,
No.
or whether he's a terrorist and not a national. ये आपके argument है ना?
To my understanding, the dispute does exist because कि हमने उस पर आर्ग्यू किया कि अगर इंडियंस कह रहे हैं कि ये हमारा नेशनल था और उसको काउंसलर एक्सेस देनी चाहिए, जबकि हमने उसकी ये इंटरप्रिटेशन की कि अगर वियना कन्वेंशन ये कह रहा है कि आप अपने तमाम नेशनल्स को, एक कंट्री के तमाम नेशनल्स को काउंसलर एक्सेस दें, लेकिन वियना कन्वेंशन ने ये शायद नहीं कहा था कि इवन इफ ही इज अ टेररिस्ट तो आप उसको भी एक्सेस दें। तो जब हम इसको इस तरह से इंटरप्रेट कर रहे हैं, दो डिफरेंट कंट्रीज डिफरेंट तरह से इंटरप्रेट कर रहे हैं, तो दैट मींस द डिस्प्यूट डज एग्जिस्ट।
So maybe I'm not getting it, but over here the Vienna Convention itself would be in favor of India because it has no exception. It says any national, as you mentioned, has to be given consular access. The exception comes in from the 2008 agreement. उसमें जो ये terrorist की argument है, security grounds, that is terrorism, that is espionage, those are security, national security grounds. उसकी exception में हम लाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। अगर हम वहाँ fit कर सकते हैं, वो तो हमारी determination है domestic. It is a security issue, espionage. Next, what is the validity of the 2008 agreement? सबसे पहले इंडिया ने रेज किया कि Article 102 of the UN Charter. Article 102 says that if you want to bring any agreement or anything up before a UN organ, it has to be registered with the UN. This agreement was not registered. So what do you do then? Oh, my God! Then we looked at the case law. The case I mentioned earlier of Qatar versus Kuwait, that case said that even if you haven't registered it, it is still legally binding. The ICJ gave much lenient view of it. And that you can still register it after the case has started. So thankfully, our Foreign Secretary made a statement that we have now initiated proceedings to register this agreement. और over a simple process होता है.
Sir, today we have some resolution we will be discussing all the outstanding issues bilaterally. क्या वो argument कर सकते हैं?
हाँ, तो this is another interesting issue. Why has India used a multilateral forum for a thing when it's all traditionally been bilateral? But can we do anything about it? We can't. We can't take Kashmir to ICJ. We can't try to internationalize it. We're stuck in a particular thing. India had more options. It utilized this option. If we get a VCCR type case, then yes, we can take India as well. But outside of this limited avenue, we can't take India to the ICJ. Draft articles of state responsibility. This is very interesting. So, these are customary international law principles. You guys have studied this. Customary international law principles which have been codified into not really a treaty but into an argument. Yeah. So we give it a 20-minute period. Yeah. So then just give me 10 minutes.
Okay.
So draft articles on state responsibility are a document which have codified customary international law principles on when a state is responsible for a wrongful act. So breaching the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations would be a wrongful act. But when is Pakistan liable? There is one element within that you are not liable if a wrong has been done to you and in exchange you do a proportionate wrong as well. So if someone's broken the law, you are allowed to take lawful reprisals or basically self-defense type cheesing. So if India has gone into your country, committed terrorism, tried to destabilize your country, denying consular relations is a very small response to that. So you're completely justified, at least I would argue, in denying consular relations. So fine, we accept, or at least this is how the argument would go, we accept it's a wrongful act. but their act is more wrongful, and it started first, and that's why we've taken this step. So under, excuse me, customary international law, we would also be covered. Okay. The final is the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties. Now this is very interesting. I don't have slides for this, but we'll look at this. Now, aapki baat thi ki whether the 2008 agreement will apply or whether the